It is a very special day for our 5 inductees and their families. This is our 9th year of inducting athletes, supporters, coaches into our Monroe County Athletic Hall of Fame. And we're glad to have the 5 that are being inducted today. We thank you for letting us share in this special, what we hope is a very special day for you, and to hear some of your memories. We have a lot of current members of the Hall of Fame that are here. We'll maybe recognize them in just a few minutes. We also thank our sponsors that you see in the program. They make all this possible for us to be here today. We're very grateful for them. In just a minute, Ricky Miller is going to lead our prayer to bless our food. We'll dismiss from the front up here, go out this door, pass up the hallway, and get your food. Drinks are in the kitchen. Hope you enjoy a great meal prepared by Staples and Hog Life. Thank you for being here, and have a great day.
I noticed back there about the drinks, some of them are poured with ice, and they probably got more in them than the little bottles. So you can, if you think that's too much for me, just drink one of the little bottles. It's pretty good variety. Shall we bow our heads and pray? Dear Lord, we just thank you today for such a beautiful day to have this gathering, and we give you praise, Lord. We know that your word says that today that you have made, and us to give thanks and be thankful for it. Just thank you so much, Lord, for these people. It's so good to call back memories and call back people, and there's so much intertwined here in Monroe County. We thank you for all we've had through the years, and Lord, we thank you for one of the main blessings today is the food. And we're so blessed in America to have the bountiful supply of food, and we thank you for all those blessings. And Lord, the final thing is this ends here in a couple of hours, as these cars go different directions. Be with each one. Take them back to their homeland. Some have longer trips than others, but watch over them all. And may this day and may this ceremony always be remembered. Such a special day in their heart. Thank you for all you've given us, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
The middle of the floor. Welcome, WELCOME. My W this year is for the West team, of which Bud Sidwell, whose name is the coach, and Jim Tom Miller is the player. The E is forever and ever and end over end. A punt that came off of the toe of one of our inductees against Barron County, and it rolled forever and ever. It turned the football game around. Barron County never recovered from the field position change. I don't know why they didn't pick it up and run. I don't know. But it did turn that game. L, Labor Day weekend, 1970. When John Cobbler Hamilton ran for 2 touchdowns in the first half, and ended up with a 3rd touchdown later in the game to get us off and winning for a 27, I believe, to 6 win over Somerset. Somerset had beaten Tompkinsville 6 straight times, and upon that game, and the year before, we beat them twice, in Tompkinsville and Somerset never won. And in honor of that, and I'll tell you the date of that game, September 4th. It's on a little thing that they gave out then. And this, in a roundabout way, made its way to me within the last month. And it had John David written all over it since he's one of the inductees. So I wanted to have that. And it was also Sesquicentennial weekend. That's right. The next night was the big play they had. C. C is for Caverna. Go and look at that. I didn't know why I wore that. Caverna, of which Bud Sidwell, after leaving Tompkinsville and Glasgow, coached their football, and he was also instrumental in creating the school. So C's for Caverna. It's also for Cave City, where also Bud coached. And speaking of CCs, I believe there's a man back there in that Bowling Green bungalow that coached CC's, Caverna and Campbellsville. O. O's not an alphabetical here for me. It's a number. 0-0. First game ever in 35, Tompkinsville and Russellville. Both offensive coordinators were fired the next week. Oh, is also the number of losses by Glasgow's basketball team in the SKAC, the district, the regional, in 16 and 68. When you come, we'd like to consider this a regional event. We consider it in Logan County, Barron County, and Adair County. All more than one. It's great to have you. M, marbles. Yes, I lost mine. I said we continue to have to way back in the early 20s. Marbles. One of our inductees is the first one we've ever had to turn in some success on the dirt yard. Veronica, among so many accomplishments and so many sports. M's from Metcalfe County. John David also had a big game against them. You can find that date on that phone first. The last one. E. East is in Warren East. As in when Tony Harlan and his ladies came from 25 points back to advance in the regional tournament. He never has told anybody what he told them at halftime. But it's great. It's one of the first times we've had coach and athlete here at the same time being inducted. And by the way, Debbie could be for a while, the wild celebration that occurred when Veronica laid it in to win the state A tournament. You know, I was in the stands and I looked down there as a basketball coach. I looked at Tony to see what he always wanted playing. And the girls huddled around, and it wasn't 5 seconds later, maybe 10. They went out, you know, got ready on the floor. And Lexington Catholic, they're still in their huddle. I said, Tony, of course, it was several weeks later after celebration. I said, what'd you tell them girls? He goes, I wanted to set a screen for Veronica. I told Veronica to drive and lay it in with 1/10 of a second to go and win a state championship for us. You know, they did it. And I'm glad they didn't have a replay. That thing might have been a 10th of a second later. It was almost something. But that's your welcome. It's so good to have you. And I appreciate this honor being here today.
Laura, did you inbound the basketball?
I did.
Laura Thomas, I don't know your last name now.
Brown.
Laura Thomas Brown, she inbounded the ball that day. Roniel was there. It was a great day for Monroe County. And we're glad to have those two ladies here in celebration. Coach Harlan and Veronica. This afternoon we have a gentleman with us who's going to share with us some thoughts that Ricky just mentioned back there a few minutes ago. Jim Richards. Jim grew up in Adair County. Was from Adair County. I guess Adair County back at that time was the place to be if you were going to go on to Western to be a basketball coach. That's also the home country of E.A. Diddle. He eventually followed Coach Diddle after Coach Owen retired. Before going to Western, of course, he coached at Glasgow, coached them to the state championship in 1968, as Ricky just mentioned. At Western, he was 102 and 84 was his record, 2 regular OVC championships and 2 tournament championships. And he also coached golf. If you ever see, of course, Kenny is now, I guess, the senior tour, but you may have seen Kenny Perry playing on Sundays and on weekends. He was the golf coach while Kenny was at Western a few years ago. So Jim's been here with us for several years at a lot of our induction ceremonies. I know he's a very good speaker, and we're glad to have Jim here with us today. And I'd like to introduce to you Coach Jim Richards.
Thank you, John.
As I stand here before you, I feel sort of like the mosquito who flew over the fence into the nudist colony. I know what my job is, I don't know where to begin. I've dealt with with so many of the athletes that have been inducted and will be inducted into this Hall of Fame. It thrills me to be a part of it. A lot of you know a former inductee, Mr. Sam Clark. Of course, I rode over with Sam today, but you probably don't know everything about Sam. Back when he and Phyllis were dating, Sam was doing about everything he could to impress her. You know, Phyllis was a very intelligent, terrific, beautiful young lady. Sam, he kind of looks like he does today. So he said, well, I think I'll take her to church. He said that would be the most impressive thing I could do. And as they were walking into church, arm in arm, and a very attractive young lady was walking out. And she smiled at him and said, hello. And Sam smiled back and said, hello. He punched Phyllis and said, you see that? See that? She said, see what? Said that young lady said, I didn't know her, and said, she just smiled at me. She said, that's nothing. It's the first time I ever saw you. I laughed out loud. Each of these people that are inductees or have been inducted, each had to pay a big, big price to get where they are. Many of them dealt with some of us crazy coaches along the way. Most everyone that gave of themselves enough to be inducted into this had a coach. Many times, very tough, very demanding. John mentioned Adair County High School. My coach, John Burr, was extremely demanding. He'd just come back from World War II, frostbite on his feet, and he didn't take a lot of stuff off of anybody. He expected you to be very disciplined in everything that you did. We had to be at the arena, or gymnasium, 7 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to be a basketball player. We had to compete with Kenny Sidwell. His team at Caverna was really good. Same region. Coach Burr was just an enormously tough disciplinarian. Once I got to Western, I found Mr. Diddle the same way. How did I get involved with Mr. Diddle? I think it's a crazy story, but my best buddies in high school were Willard and Wayne Smith, twins. Excellent pitchers, both left-handed. And first day on campus on the Saturday when we were getting ready to move in, we went down to their uncle's house to see a baseball game on television. Wouldn't be a big deal today, but none of us had a television set. Didn't have a telephone at my house. So it was a little different seeing one on television. And we walked up the hill in front of Mr. Diddle's house, and he was sitting over on the porch in his rocking chair. And I shall try to mimic Mr. Diddle as best I can. He says, hey, Dad. So you three Smith twins, come here a minute. I was one of 3 Smith twins. He didn't know my name. But that's all right. He gave us a room up in his house. Had he never given me a room in his house, I would never have been a basketball coach. He had such a fabulous influence on my life. You had to read the line, had to read between the lines a lot of times, Mr. Diddle. And if you'll notice, I still call him Mr. Diddle. I don't know of any player that was ever around him that didn't call him Mr. Diddle. We never called him Ed or Uncle Ed or seldom did we even call him Coach. It was Mr. Diddle. He was a real father figure to us because we lived in the back end of his house. His wife and he lived up in the front portion of that house. By the way, he did miss on Kenny Sidwell as a prospect, and I've always been sorry for that, Kenny. But he thought you needed to be taller, I think, was a big problem there. But he would often say, when you get ready for a picture, he'd say, "You fellas line up alphabetically according to height." Alphabetically according to height? It doesn't sound very reasonable till you think about it, but he wanted the biggest one, the tallest one in the middle, and then the next tallest next to him, and adjacent like this in the back row, then the shorter ones down front. Alphabetically according to height, but you had to figure all that out. Let's see here. Yeah, another thing he often said was, you can't play with music in your hair. Music in your hair? If you had curly hair and it was long enough for the curls to show, he didn't think you were interested enough in basketball. You were more interested in your girlfriend or something of that sort. And he was looking for that consummate team player. That guy that would give everything possible to the team and the team concept. His coaching was in a day that's a little different from what you see today also. When they were on a road trip, they frequently took 3 automobiles. They didn't have a bus or didn't have enough money to have a bus, so they took 3 automobiles. And they decided they would purchase a roadster. Now this roadster would seat 3 across the front seat, 3 across the back, and had 2 little fold-down seats on the sides of the back doors where managers or what have you could sit. So that's 3, 6, 8 that they could take in there, another 6 in the other car, and so they could save a car. Mr. Diddle always drove the roadster. It used a little oil, so they kept a big case of oil up on the front seat, or the front fender up there. Mr. Hornback always drove the other car. He was the assistant coach. They were on their way to play Berea on a Friday night, Eastern on a Saturday night. And as they drove up through the country, got to Somerset, there was a road that you could take through there, and Mr. Hornback wanted to get in front because he didn't want to eat the dust from the roadster. So he passes Mr. Diddle, and Mr. Diddle says, "I don't like that. I'm going to try to get back in front of him." He said, "We're going to take a shortcut." So shortcut he took, gravel road, and he's flying on that gravel road, and he sees that he's not going to make a curve. So rather than wreck the car, he runs through a fence, a gate in a farmer's lot, and ran right over the top of an area where they used to change oil. For you old timers, they had a pit where they built it up a little bit. You went underneath the car in order to change oil. Well, as he went over the top of this, he clipped the oil pan, and he gets her going around in circles down in that farm lot, and finally gets it under control. He said, "Well, the old coach did a nice job of driving, didn't he?" And the players all scared to death, and they agreed with him. So they got him back. He drove back up on the gravel road. He said, "Let's see what the problem is." And he says, "Uh-oh," says, we busted up the oil pan." He said, "I got an idea." Wrigley Spearmint Chewing Gum sponsored the team in those days. And they had a bunch of chewing gum in the back of the car. He gave each one a package and had them to chew it up. He kneaded that up like he would dough and flattened it out and put it on the oil pan. He says, "We can limp on into Berea tonight," says, "We'll get it fixed tomorrow." So they he poured some of the oil off the running board up there into the crankcase, and they limped on into Berea. Played the game that night, so they went for practice the next morning up to Richmond. He says, well, old coach can't get it fixed here. Said, these people charge him an arm and a leg. Said, they don't like me here in Richmond. He says, we'll just have to do something else. So he says, on the way back home, he says, Ted says, you just stay behind. Says, we'll limp on back in home and we'll get her fixed there. They sold the Roadster 7 years later, and they still had the chewing gum in the pocket.
That's great.
The red towel has become a symbol at Western. It's a symbol that we all who graduate from there love the red towel. Mr. Diddle created this through a variety of things. As at that time in the old gym, the players and the coach sat on benches sort of behind the goal. And right behind that for about 3 rows were people with season tickets. Many of them ladies. When Western would score on a fast break, coach would have a tendency to throw his towel up in the air and let it come down. Now, he was a very overweight guy, let's say, and he sweated a lot. And everybody wore suits and ties in those days. And when he'd throw the towel up, it landed on his head, and the ladies behind him clapped, and they liked that. And he thought, well, they like that, I better do that again. So he'd throw it up, and he'd move around to get his head under the towel. Oh, they applauded. And so we went to Madison Square Garden to play in the NIT, and he was going to do the same thing. Kelly Thompson, who was the in charge of publicity in those days, said, Coach said, we need to dye that towel red. Said it would be better in Madison Square Garden if we did that. So they dyed the towel red, and he would toss it in the air and let it fall on his head. And the people in Madison Square Garden truly liked Mr. Diddle because of those kinds of antics and the way he did things and the way he talked and what have you. So the red towel became a whole part of the persona that goes on at Western, and Mr. Diddle created that in order to make the ladies happy that sat behind him on the benches. That's what it was really all about. Dr. Thompson, who later became the president, was a football player at Western. He got hurt, and in those days, if you got hurt, they just took you off scholarship. And he didn't have enough money to stay in school, so he packed his bag and was headed for home. Through accident or what, I've never known, but Mr. Diddle saw Kelly Thompson going home with his suitcase in his hand. And he picked him up and said, where are you going, Kelly? He said, I'm off scholarship, Coach. I'm going home. I don't have enough money to stay. He says, get in the car. And he took him to a fellow named Bob Cochran and got him a job in the publicity department at Western. And he stayed in school, stayed on the football team, and what have you. As he progressed through the ranks, and it was time for a new president, they weren't assured that he was going to be the president. Mr. Diddle had a lot of close associations with the governors in those days. Close associations. And he was able to persuade the governor at that time to put 2 new Board of Regents members on. Both just happened to be from Lebanon, Kentucky. One with the name of Spradley, and one with the name of Campbell, who was the mayor of Lebanon. And it just so happened that Kelly Thompson won from the Board of Regents the presidency at Western Kentucky. within a month, both of those guys resigned. So politics was going on way, way back there. And Kelly Thompson became one of the great presidents along the way. And Mr. Biddle was one of the chief guys. He had a lot of other influence. My first letter at Western was gray and red. Our colors were red and gray. When I came to Western, there was a red and gray orchestra. The team colors were red and gray. And I was riding up the hill from baseball practice one day with Coach, and he says, you know, Jim, I like red and gray, okay, but he said, I think I like red and white better. I said, I like red and white, Coach. He said, I think we'll be red and white next year. We were. There was no committee. No, committees were out. Mr. Biddle decided we'd be red and white. We're still red and white. We had some black in it now and then for accent, or this or blue when he was there for accent, but we're still red and white. The man had a lot of, a lot of different things about him. He and Governor Lawrence Weatherby were going hunting one morning, and Coach had a roadster at that time. It seated 3 people across the front, and the back had a little trundle seat back there that you could, and it was a 5-seat deal. So they put Coach's dog Rex in the back of that, and they were on their way out to hunt. And they got wherever they were going, and it started raining. Governor Weatherby said, Coach, he said, I think I'd be a lot better off back in Frankfort than I would just sitting out here in the weather like this. He says, I think that's right. So they headed back to town. When they got there, the governor took off, and Coach forgot to left Rex in his car. So that day at lunch, he called Rex, and Rex didn't show up. That night for dinner, he called Rex, and Rex didn't show up. And he started questioning things. He said, it's just not like Rex not to show up for a meal. Said he likes to eat. So he said, somebody on the campus has stolen my dog. So he got president to let school out for everybody to look for Rex, his dog. And it just so happened he had a flat tire. When he did, he reached in the back of that roadster to get his jack out, and there's Rex. He comes trotting out. He says, where you been, Rex? We've been looking everywhere for you. Coach Biddle had such an influence on my life. And I know that each of you guys who are inductees have had coaches that have had a lot of influence on your life as to what happened. I know it takes so much time and effort to be good. Gary Pullman said I was a tough guy. I never knew that, Gary. He said I was tough when he was in basketball. I don't think so. I thought I was a very mild-mannered guy. I know that it takes, there's a book called The Outliers. The Outliers. It talks about doing whatever your job is 10,000 times to really be successful. If you want to be a successful golfer, if you practice 3 hours a day in the rain, in the snow, in the sunshine, whatever, every day, 10,000 hours, and do the right things, you'll be pretty good at it. Kenny Sidwell, when they lived in Glasgow, they tell me that they lived up over the basketball arena there, basketball gymnasium at Glasgow High School. They said he was pounding that ball at all hours of the days and nights. I can attest to the fact he was one of the greatest shooters I ever saw because I tried to guard him because just couldn't do it. My father-in-law, future father-in-law, said if we could hold you under 25 points in a game, he'd buy me a steak dinner. I still haven't had a steak dinner yet. Couldn't get one because the guy was always too good. there are any youngsters in this audience, that you will find a way to check these people out who are being inducted here today. They've got to be good people, they have to be strong, and they have to be really, really tough. Believe me, as a coach, I have coached against a whole bunch of these. Mr. Hamilton, I remember you when you were in junior high. You could flat run then, buddy. You ran over us at Glasgow. Yeah. Johnny Bashan back there and Elois Grooms. I remember when they were on the junior high team. Yeah, I was a junior high football coach. Yeah, just walloped us. So I know what kind of athletes have come out of this great county here, this school, and I appreciate all that you've done to help them to be great people. Look forward to hearing from all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Richards. Just a few of the stories we know you can hear about Coach Diddle. I've heard that dog story before. Maybe read it in Gary West's book or something about Rex being lost. Before we get to our inductees today, not sure if Shannon and Deborah are still here, but I want to thank them again for a great meal. There's some compliments on the pork chop. Hope you enjoyed it. And thank them. They're part of the Hog Wild Barbecue. If you ever need their services, they do a great job. We also have several of our Hall of Fame members that are here today. Before we hear from the five that are being inducted today, I want to just recognize the ones that I know are here. I hope I have everybody on here. If you'll just say hello. Lewis Carter, we'll be hearing from Lewis in just a minute. Greg Hamilton, we'll be hearing from Greg's brother in just a minute. Johnny Bashan, back with us. Larry Moore. Janice Walda, here with us today. Gary Bowman, heard about just a minute ago. Billy Joe Kendall, part of the Bowling Green contingency, along with Sam Clark and Bill McClendon. Appreciate all of you coming back. And that's what we invite you to do. You five there are three, and the families that are here being inducted today, we hope you'll come back. We want to see you back and being a part of the program in years to come. Anyone else here that I overlooked? And I guess, as they say, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Our first inductee is Kenneth Bub Sidwell. And to introduce him to us today, we have his daughter, Linda Sidwell Thompson.
Thank you so much. It's at times like these today, I'm always reminded of an article that I read one time. I believe it was years ago in the Glasgow Daily Times, so that was a long time ago. And it was a question asked of Billy Graham. And he said, do people that are in heaven, do they get to see what's going on down here? And so he quoted the scripture, Hebrews 12:1, that says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us run this race that's before us. So I believe that in the portals of heaven today, that Jim Tom Miller and Bub Sidwell, God has rolled back the portals of heaven and then let them see what's going on here today. There is nothing, no honor that would have pleased my father any more than this one. I don't know whether it was at a particular season in his life. He was a young coach, newly married, his first son, Kenny, born here right in Tompkinsville in the home. But Daddy's time in Tompkinsville was some of the most endeared time in his coaching time here that he was always so proud of. The people of Tompkinsville, he used to tell me, that community and those people will always hold the most special place in my heart. And he talked often about you all and about his coaching experience here. And after our dearly beloved stepmother passed away, there were about 10 years that I lived in Frankfurt, and I would come home on the weekend, and I would ask Daddy, I'd say, well, Daddy, where would you like to go eat? We'll go to Bowling Green. We'll go to down at the Louis B. Nunn Lodge. We'll go anywhere you want to. Anywhere you want to go, Daddy. He said, well, honey, you know what I'd like to have? I'd like to go to Tompkinsville and get a Dovey hamburger. And here we go, coming to Tompkinsville. He could have had filet mignon or whatever, but no, we're going to go to Dovey's and we're going to have a hamburger, and we did. So that's another one of our claims to fame here in Tompkinsville. So it is a great honor on behalf of my family and our friends here today for my father to be inducted into this Hall of Fame. Thank you so much, Mike Hammer, John, and the committee, and all the hard work that you've done, because we appreciate it so much. So, at this time, before formally being inducted into the Monroe County Hall of Fame, I present Kenneth Bub Sidwell to the Hall of Fame committee to be enshrined into the 2018 class.
We, the Monroe County Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, do officially induct Kenneth Bub Sidwell into the Hall of Fame. At this time, his son, Kenny Sidwell, will come to unveil the plaque and accept on behalf of Mr. Sidwell.
Blown my mind. I almost cried just looking at the program. What an honor it is. And I was just on the couch watching TV with my neighbor who's 5-year-old, and we were engrossed in a great cartoon. The phone rings. And it's Mike Hammer. And he told me that they were inducting Kenneth Sidwell in the Hall of Fame. Well, I couldn't figure out what in the world he's talking about. My dad had been dead for at least 10 to 15 years, and that left me. And I had been in Tompkinsville for probably 50 years. And I said, this must be some mistake. And what is great about the whole thing is how great this has turned out. Kenneth Sidwell Sr. was two people. He was a tough nut. Being raised by him was very, very difficult. Not from the standpoint of not loving me, he was the standpoint of making me, or trying to make me, as good as I could be. He was a heck of a football coach. He would stay up all night designing different plays and all that. And he was probably the first that went from what they call the old single wing, which I'm sure is what Tompkinsville ran at first. Everybody did. And he went to what they call the straight T, which was new then in the 30s. And he was very successful at it. Then he changed again himself before it was known by anybody else. He went to the split T. And that was eventually copied. And he did one that he got a little trouble on. He developed this offense where he had two quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks were under the center. And he was at Glasgow when he did this, and he just blew the first team play down and blew them out. They complained to the Kentucky High School Athletic Association that it was illegal and he had to forfeit the game. But that sort of shows his expertise in that area. The learning process that you went through, for instance, the first 5 years, if you walked in the house, you better damn sure you took that hat off. If you asked, say, pass the peas, everything was family style. Pass the peas, that pea stood right there, didn't move. And he said, well, pass the peas. That thing didn't move. He said, you know how to pass the peas? And I looked at him and I said, I know how. Pass the peas, please. Here come the peas. So it was like that you mind your ways, know your manners, and it's yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. And that's the way it was. One lesson that I remember quite well is a little later on, I was in the 8th grade. We were at Cave City, and he was a basketball coach. I made the varsity, and I was a starting guard in the 8th grade. And during the district tournament, I was awarded made the all-tournament team. And that back then they didn't give you a trophy, they gave you a little basketball, a little bitty thing. And so I didn't know what to do with it. And so I went home, and I was afraid. I took it home. I started wearing it or anything like that. Trying to be too big for my britches, and all the other guys were older than I was, and so I just put it in a drawer. Well, that just stayed there for 2 or 3 days, and I came home one afternoon, and there was that award, that little basketball, sitting on the living room table. I said, well, what's that doing there? And so I wanted to ask my mother. I said, what's the ball doing on the table? I said, well, she said, your daddy put it there. You better talk to him. So, well, I talked to him. He said, what if that award had been a brand new bicycle? Brand new swinging bicycle. He said, well, you take it in the basement and covered it up and hope nobody saw it. He said, no. You would have driven it down the street and be proud of it, but everybody could see it. That was tough. He was marvelous or something like that. There was another time he was always coming in the room at the house asking how things were going, give me advice and all that stuff, and football and basketball. One year we had a big basketball game coming up. We were ranked number, at the start of the season, we played about 10 games, and we were undefeated, and we were ranked about the 3rd or 4th state. And the team that was coming in to play us was Piper. They were number 2 in the state. They had a player that named think of it, Jim, the Butcher, John Lee Butcher. He was averaging 39 points a game. And back in those days, in the 50s, that's a lot of points. There was no three-point basket or anything like that. And our coach was Ralph Dorsey, a former All-American in Indiana. And he decided to just play a straight man up. And he put me on John Lee Butcher. And so I went home, and Dad keeps up with all these things. He reads all this stuff. And he's not the basketball coach, but he always tells me how he thinks I ought to go. He said, who's guarding John Lee? And I said, well, I'm guarding John Lee. He said, that's a big mistake. He said, you ought to play a boxing one or some kind of zone, because you're not going to stop him. He shoots about 80% of their shots. And he read up, he kept up with it. Well, the game took place, and I didn't think anybody could beat us at home. They did. The final scores in overtime was 91-89. John Lee didn't get 39 points. He got 41. Which had kept him confident. So I went home that night, and he was in a good mood. He just teased me about it. He said, sure was a great defensive job you did tonight. In many ways, when he was after he retired, he became very more pleasant guy to be around. He wasn't goal-oriented, but he did some crazy, crazy things. He went out to an auction, and there was this beautiful farm. It had 2,000 feet of lake frontage on Bear River Road. Well, he bids on it, and he ended up getting the bid. There was only one problem, he didn't have any money. So he called me up and he said, he got the bid and said, I said, Dad, you don't have any money. I said, how did you do that? He said, well, the banker told me he would approve the loan, I could get it if I got you on a note. So I appreciate that. So I I did that, and after we got this farm, he made me a call and says, every farm needs a truck. I said, Dad, I'm not buying your truck. He said, would you pay $200 for a truck? I said, you can get a truck for $200, you hop on it. Well, he still had his card for Army surplus. And he called and sees that thing was still valid, and it was. So he goes to Army surplus and asks for a truck. They don't have a truck. They have an ambulance. So he gets the ambulance, and he has the welder dug out some on the back where you can carry something in it. And he came around the corner. We were sitting on the porch at the farm. The sirens was going like crazy. And then he decided about a couple of weeks later that he had a big fishing pond, big pond. He wanted to put catfish in it. So he did that. He got this big catfish in a garbage thing and put the catfish full of eggs. And then going 2 weeks later, I visited him and he said, you know, there's that big tree cuts down. It went up beside the pond, huge pond and a huge tree, and it's leaned over the pond. He said, that tree's going to fall in my pond, so I'm going to cut it down. I said, you can't cut that thing down. At that time, he was probably close to 78, 80. And he said, I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to go get my chainsaw. I said, when you get a chainsaw, I said, I he go get his chainsaw, and I go up there in the ponds next to the pond, and I just sit down and lean against the barn and watch him start on the tree. He cuts his little valve in and so forth, and he specs that thing to, I said, that thing, so I hollered at him, I said, Dad, that thing's gonna fall in the tree. He said, I don't need any expertise from the drugstore station. So I said, when I kept my mouth shut, he cut that thing fell right in the middle of that tree. He didn't say a word. Now, I didn't say anything, I wasn't about to say it. He gets out his thing, he gets out a cigarette, puts it in there, lights it up, looks around, and about that time something white floats up to the top. And he looks up at me with just excruciating pain. He said, I was damn, I killed my cat pig.
I just heard from Daddy from the portals of heaven. And he said, son, you said enough. We were back there cringing when we got to the catfish story. Margaret said, oh no, don't get him, Linda, don't get him.
I always had to have somebody watch out for him. My wife does that. I want to close with this. We're delighted to be here.